どうしたの、その今日の先生は挨拶したのに。どこにいろんなとこ行ってんじゃね、ジム。
よくある。
他でも。でも教えてんのはここだけでしょ。
違うよ。
他でも教えてんの。
3か所4か所くらい行ってるよ。
一人でぐるぐる回って。
1か所だと給料やっていけないもんだ。
でもここでは1週に1回だけでしょ。金曜日だけやってるでしょ、ここでは。
僕は知らない内容に。3か所4か所である。ここはインド人が多いね。インド人もすごく多いわ。
ついていってる。どっちが優しい？こっちの方が優しい？それとも向こう？
なんだ先生によって違う。
じゃあ向こうは月と水曜同じ先生でしょ。
2回来ないもん。みんな1回きりだ。
1回きりや。
週1回きりだ。
よかったね。でもサウナに入ったの今日。
入って。
涼しい今。大丈夫？
South Korea, days after North Korea's latest missile test. The USS Michigan has some serious firepower. It's able to hold about 150 Tomahawk missiles, and its arrival is the first of its kind in 6 years. At a recent summit, President Biden and South Korea's president agreed to making their, quote, strategic assets more visible. The two countries and Japan have been working together on military drills as North Korea continues to show aggressive behavior. In Washington, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
4 people died when tornadoes struck the South Thursday, 3 in Texas and 1 in Florida. American Family News is online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Key.
Hi, I'm Kirby Anderson, president of Probe Ministries and host of the Point of View radio program. You've probably noticed that many young Christians leave the church after they graduate, but they don't have to graduate from God. That's why I want to invite your children and grandchildren to attend the Probe Mind Games Camp in Texas. We prepare them for college and their entry into a world that will challenge their faith. This one-week camp includes lectures, role play, along with some great fun. It will take place June 18th to the 24th. Go to probe.org for more information.
About people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are. We equip. This is a battle of worldview.
And we activate. We also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Friday edition of The Core. Fred Jackson sitting in for Walker today. Always enjoy doing the Friday edition. Kind of gives a chance to look back at the week that was, the breaking news stories, and what it all means. And I tell you, this week, I suppose I kind of say that every Friday. This week was another momentous week in the history of this country. But the way things are unfolding these days, I can just about say that every week. And certainly high in the news agenda this week was the arraignment of former President Donald Trump in Miami. It's been interesting to watch. Remember back a month or so ago, it was the president arraigned in a courtroom in New York on the charges brought there by left-wing prosecutor Alvin Bragg. Most people agree that was and is purely political. Most have dismissed it as that. This week, of course, it was in Miami. It had to do with the documents found at the former president's residence in Mar-a-Lago there in Florida. There are 37 charges in the indictment against the former president. Some people like constitutional expert Jonathan Turley, say these charges in Florida are maybe difficult, at least some of them, for the former president to overcome, having to do with classified documents found in various locations. Other people believe that this is just as political as some of the other charges that were brought in the original case in New York. And this is all part of a political agenda against the former president. I believe in that big picture. There's no question about the political agenda of this Joe Biden-driven Justice Department. No question whatsoever. But you know, if you thought that the latest indictment against the former president is going to make him wilt and just kind of melt away, you ought to think again. Shortly after his arraignment in Miami, the motorcade of security people, et cetera, which we're kind of getting used to seeing now, left the courthouse there in Miami, and everybody thought he was returning to the Miami airport to return on his jet to his summer home in New Jersey. But we were surprised to learn he made a stop. And the stop was at a very famous, I'm told, Cuban restaurant there in Miami, where they were holding a party for the former president who turned 77 back in Wednesday this week. And it was very much a party atmosphere. And the president paused for pictures. Before he left, he told the owner of the restaurant, give them food for everybody, and made that gesture. But later on that evening, he had a speech at his residence there in New Jersey, his summer residence in New Jersey. And this is where I kind of get the idea that this president is still in attack mode, has absolutely no intention of stepping back from this. And if there was ever a fighting spirit, he demonstrated that in that speech. Cut number 1.
This day will go down in infamy, and Joe Biden will forever be remembered as not only the most corrupt president in the history of our country, but perhaps even more importantly, the president who, together with a band of his closest thugs, misfits, and Marxists, tried to destroy American democracy.
Well, there you have it. That's the president and former president, and he will continue on. He has a schedule of events, and what's going to be interesting to see. You will remember after the appearance in New York on those charges related to money given to a couple of women, that his ratings actually went up. His polling numbers actually went up. So it's going to be interesting to see over the next 10 days or so when the polls do come out. And if I was a betting man, there'll be polls. If they haven't started already, they will be out. And it'll be interesting to see where he is. He's polling well ahead of the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. You know, regardless of, and many people have concerns about former president's personality, some of the things that he has been saying about Ron DeSantis, and some of the people like his former vice president Mike Pence, etc., etc. One thing you have to give credit to the former president, Donald Trump, is he's in the fight all the time. He just never backs away. 77 years old, and he's fighting like a 30-year-old in a battle. And you have to, regardless of what you think of his personality from time to time, you have got to give him credit for that. There's just no indication he plans to give up on this. There is an interesting question about this case in Florida with regards to when a trial might be held. We talked to our own Abe Hamilton earlier in the week to give an assessment of the indictment. And he said the court appearance in Miami was just a start. There is going to be a long and drawn-out discovery period. Some people say, that the special prosecutor in the case would like a quick trial, but some people say no, that is very doubtful, and that the trial may not take place before the 24 election. We'll have to wait and see on that front. Of course, the former president is also facing the possibility of charges in another case related to the last election, this one in Georgia. So this story is just going to continue, and it's going to be a major player as far as the issues go in this election campaign. You know, there are many I've mentioned that believe the former president is being railroaded. One of those is John Ratcliffe, the former director of national intelligence under the Trump administration. And this is what he had to say about the current case. Cut number 11.
Yesterday was a travesty because, look, we all think that laws should be enforced, but the laws should be applied evenly and enforced evenly, and that's clearly not taking place here, and that's one of the things that President Trump is pointing out. And because that isn't happening here with respect to Jack Smith, this is very clearly coming across as a political prosecution, and because it's a prosecution that was initiated by the incumbent president against his primary political opponent, it is election interference.
Well, there you have it. That is a viewpoint of many people, certainly, obviously, the supporters of the former president. We will have to wait and see. But Mr. Ratcliffe's reference to this being political bias, that was playing out from a different perspective while the president's hearing was going on in Miami. In in Washington, D.C., there was a Senate hearing with the deputy director of the FBI. And the questions to him had to deal with that form, that now famous FBI form 1023, which is not a classified document, which Republicans in the House, the Oversight Committee, have been after, and they've been stonewalled by the FBI. Finally, the FBI, under subpoena threat, did allow some members of the House to see a extremely, we are told, redacted version of that. So what happened at the Senate hearing this week was that it came shortly after Senator Grassley, who has been talking to the whistleblower about what the FBI really knows about Joe Biden when he was vice president and his dealing with Ukraine and Burisma. And the word is that the then Vice President Biden got about $5 million from the CEO of Burisma after the vice president, remember, there's a famous video out there, the vice president basically bragging that he got rid of a prosecutor who was looking into Burisma. All right? Now, the word is that Joe Biden got $5 million, Hunter Biden got $5 million. Remember, Joe Biden, who says he doesn't know anything about his son's business dealings, still saying that. His son just happened to get a really, really lucrative job sitting on the board of Burisma, an energy company. As far as we know, Hunter Biden doesn't know anything about energy. So, all of this was playing out because what happened is Chuck Grassley gets up and says there's about 17 audio recordings, apparently recorded by the CEO of Burisma, of his conversations with Joe Biden, at least 2 of those 17. And so what the senators wanted to know, why is that portion of this 1023 redacted? And we want to see the whole thing to verify what Chuck Grassley is saying is that there's audio tape out there available. Here's a little bit of the exchange between Senators Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and the Deputy Director of the FBI.
Is it true that the FBI has a report making those allegations?
I'm just not going to comment on information we received, investigations.
Do you owe an obligation to the American people to be candid about evidence of corruption by the President of the United States?
This is an area that I'm not going to get into with you, Senator.
Well, I understand you don't want to, and that's why people are mad at the FBI.
Yes or no? Will you commit to releasing this unclassified document that alleges that the President of the United States has taken $5 million or more in bribes from a foreign nation?
Senator, the document, as you know, contains sensitive information that has bearing on the life of the source of the information, potentially.
You can redact the source's name. We do this all the time.
Yes, Senator Hawley's right. Mr. Deputy Director, if that is what your concern is, that this document may reveal who this informant is, and we've been told this informant has been used by the FBI for years, has been paid a whole lot of money, so he is regarded by the FBI as being credible. So Senator Hawley says, fine, if that's your concern, if that's your only concern, then redact that portion that identifies this guy, but show us the rest. And the fact that the FBI refuses to do that just gives more credence to the whole allegation that there are 2 streams of justice going on in this country right now. One against, with all members of the Justice Department against Donald Trump, and the other protecting Joe Biden. Later in the week, the President, Joe Biden, was asked about this bribery, and he just kind of chuckled and walked away from reporters. At other periods, he said malarkey.
1ヶ月にお父さん、1ヶ月に1回バフェにさ、行こうか。日決めて、1ヶ月に1回チャイナバフェ。
ああ、バフェうまいね。美味しいよ。
だから25ドルだから2人で。だから1ヶ月に1回来てもいいね。
ああ、美味しいよ。
The other part of this whole story is the way the mainstream media covered the Trump arraignment this week. NBC anchor Chuck Todd went absolutely ballistic, particular over the greeting that the former president was given at this Cuban restaurant. restaurant. He thought that was absolutely appalling. Let me read you some of his comments. He says, "My word, I mean, we've not seen anything like this in the United States before." He compared the reception at Trump's pit stop to corrupt political figures in Central and South American countries who are celebrated by supporters while under legal threat. Gee, way not to be unbiased there, Chuck Todd, NBC anchor Chuck Todd. Absolutely amazing. I suppose the one good thing, we certainly know where Chuck Todd stands on this story, as if we should be surprised by that. But the mainstream media, that's a whole other thing that we can talk a whole lot about. The bias in all of this. They either ignore stories completely, or if they do the story, it's on attack mode, and if it was up to them, they declare former President Trump guilty right away. All right, much more ahead on this Friday edition of The Core, talking more about the political correctness out there when it comes to this being Pride Month and the kinds of groups that are being impacted and embracing this. We'll talk about that when we come back.
For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. According to the CDC and the Guttmacher Institute, the number one reason women choose abortion is they're not ready for a child. The number two reason, they can't afford a baby. Number three, they don't want any more children. Number four, they don't want to be a single mother. Number five, not mature enough to raise a child. Number six, a baby would interfere with their education or career. Those reasons represent 95% of all abortions. Risk to the mother's physical health represent less than 4% of all abortions, and conception resulting from rape and incest represent less than 1% of all abortions. Abortion is used as birth control.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, public policy analyst for the American Family Association.
This is Raising God the Girls Minute with Patty Garibay of American Heritage Girls.
Long before the written record of history, families would gather to pass on their heritage through spoken stories. Not only did the younger generations learn about their family, the cross-generational bonds formed deeply, strengthening those family groups. This Father's Day, ask a dad